Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Sunday. It's Daryl here. It is 4 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. I want to talk about Donald Trump's 1776 Commission and why it is a very bad idea for the country. Stick with me here. I know. How could being patriotic be bad for the country, you ask? I refer you to Beau the Fifth Column and his video on Thomas Paine and patriotism versus something like Donald Trump's 1776 Commission. I'm sure everybody out there's probably heard of his proposed idea here, the 1776 Commission. It's basically a fairy tale retelling. It's a push to put this in the schools, to gloss over violent colonialism, slavery, the internment of Japanese Americans in internment camps. Anybody of Japanese descent locked up, having committed no crime, just being a Japanese American, born in America, an American citizen, but they have Japanese heritage and they go into camp. Yeah, that was a mistake. It goes against America and America's true spirit. Now, see, Donald Trump's 1776 Commission is a push to gloss over all of this stuff and just make, I think Donald Trump's words were the miracle of the United States. It's basically to say how great American white men are and this country of America that's made to rule the world. Funny thing, I wasn't going to mention this. If you guys have ever seen Trumpy Bear on TV, a stuffed animal, and one of the actors in the commercial, he's supposed to be in a factory setting, and he says, "How back when America ruled the world, American greatness ruled the world," and that phrase just sticks in my head. Ruled the world. We ruled the world. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a strong economy or the strongest economy. But that phrase, rule the world, again, in the same sentence as Trumpy Bear or Donald Trump, it's a subtle subconscious push towards all of this, or not so subconscious push. Let me talk about why it's a bad idea not to talk about the most important thing is to talk about our mistakes. Why? Because we learn from our mistakes. You don't stick your hand in a flame, do you, anymore? Because you probably got burned when you were 2 or 3 years old. I remember spilling hot soup on myself when I was about 3 years old. I still remember it. And that's why I'm very cautious when I go around the stove. I don't get burned again. I learned because hot soup came all over my body. You learned from your mistakes. It's probably one of the most important lessons I learned. So it doesn't happen again. Those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. It's just not a happy, pretty saying. It's the truth. That's why this fairy tale retelling is a steady slide into authoritarian F-wordism. And it's not patriotic. Patriotic is something that's good for America. It's doing the right thing for your country, believing and doing the right thing for your country. And by glossing over our mistakes and not learning from them, it's not doing the right thing for our country because they will be repeated and we'll continue to repeat them. Now, think about this. Okay, I had 22 years of hard drug addiction, the hardest, severe opiate addiction, where I was lying on the floor, puking, messing myself, shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't sleep. I mean, not close my eyes for 3 or 4 days. I mean, not 5 seconds of sleep, shaking uncontrollably. And no matter whatever you picture, it was 1,000 times worse because there's a mental component that came with it that made you want to die. But what if I didn't learn from that? What if I had pictures all over my house of the parties I had back when I was 20 years old, the good times, when I got laid and all my friends were here and it was a great night. What if I just I didn't remember any of the bad stuff? I wouldn't be sitting here. Or I would be sitting here, but I'd have a mirror right next to me and a straw. You have to learn from your mistakes. Now, teaching kids this, as each generation passes, if you don't teach each generation, it's gonna be forgotten. With each generation, more and more will be forgotten. And in 1 or 2 generations, there's a scary poll out where they polled U.S. Americans. I wasn't going to talk about this, so I don't remember the exact numbers, but I urge you to look this up. It's about the Holocaust, and it was just a recent poll taken as to how many Americans know the truth about the Holocaust, how many millions of people were killed. I do remember one number. 49% of Americans 18 to 34 have seen online Holocaust denial stories. 49% of young Americans have seen Holocaust denial stories. Half of all young Americans have read Holocaust denial stories. That's troubling because if we don't learn, we are condemned to repeat this. And if you're saying right now, well, maybe that's not such a bad thing, well, then we're already way further there than we should be. Because if you're thinking that it's not a bad thing, then it's just making my point. Go back and watch. There's 100 movies I could name. Read some history books. It was a mistake. Or slavery. Or the real story of the violent colonialism. And the story of how Native Americans were relocated and wiped out. And basically, they tried to Americanize Native American children. Take away, that's why you don't hear a lot of Native American dialect, because it was wiped out. It was forcibly wiped out. Those parts of American history. The internment of Japanese Americans in the 40s. Without them, born in America, American citizens, working hard, going to having families, and they're thrown in jails, internment camps. Why? Because of their heritage, simply because of who their great-grandparents were. Mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes. Let me talk about the statues in the South. Just lately, Trump talked about General Robert E. Lee. What a great guy he was. That right there. Now, look, I understand that people in the South, there's a guarantee there's generations of Lee's descendants in the South, and I understand that, and I understand how I understand their complaints. But here's the problem: by just highlighting those men, those generals, those are the people that committed those mistakes, that made those mistakes. They were part of the mistake of slavery, of protecting slavery, of trying to continue slavery. All right, and that's not to say they were bad through and through or anything, but unfortunately, they're going to have to be used as an example of the mistake and why. Instead, we need to put up statues of Rosa Parks, of Malcolm X, of Martin Luther King, and on and on. And I could name, because then you're learning from your mistakes. You're talking about the people. The result of your mistakes, you're learning from your mistakes. By keeping all those and just those statues up of Civil War generals and the Civil War, and them on their horses and their swords up, you're highlighting the mistake. Like I said, that's like me putting pictures up in my house of just the good memories from the very early years, the early 20s, when it was a party. Before it turned into a living hell, and I wanted to commit suicide every day. You see what I mean? If I did that, if I just remembered those days, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would not be sitting here right now if I did that, because I wouldn't be learning from my mistakes. Now, Trump's 1776 commission is just that. Now, if these children are just taught about the glory and how America is made to rule the world, you see the path we're going to go down. And as every generation goes through that re-education, that cleaned up, that prettied up education, in 2 or 3 generations, the Holocaust, the internment of Japanese Americans, the treatment of Native Americans will be forgotten, or it'll be just prettied up. It's that pretty little picture I used to see in elementary school with a picnic table and a couple Indians with their feathers and a couple people in pilgrim outfits sharing corn and turkey. Yay, we're all happy, happy, happy. Come. You know, it's bull, man. And that's why it'll lead to more mistakes down the line, where we do this to another country and another country. Colonialism. If we don't learn from slavery, what do you think will happen? If we don't think, hey, it wasn't such a bad thing, it was good for the economy. There was a lot of great generals that came out, you know, they fought for America. If we don't learn from our mistakes, we are condemned to repeat them. Trump's 1776 commission is not patriotic. It is just another step towards the F word and authoritarianism. And it's not good for the country. It's just going to lead to somebody sticking their hand in the fire over and over and over and over again until their hand burns off. That's someone being America. All right, I'll be back later with another video. You guys have a good Sunday.